Mics are about to be turned on, just so you know.
And that's how we administer the other than professional services.
So far, we don't have a quorum, do we?
No, we don't even have a chair.
Jim should be here shortly and Wanda.
I'm not sure we're gonna have a chair, because Glenn, Clay,
Figure out why we did some things the way we did.
and Wade are not here.
She said she talked to Fanny.
That's all five.
One of us needs a chair anyway, if we get a quorum.
Well, years of service, you got the most, not necessarily continuous, but,
Yeah. Well, whatever, I don't care who chairs it.
well, the three of us, it would be you or me that have the most right now, because we've been on it for the same length of time. And I defer.
You know, the history of this thing's interesting, because that original bunch really figured out a lot of stuff about putting water all through the county, and boy, they were gung ho.
Our other officer
I mean, they did a hell of a job, but when it comes to sewer, it's like, they
Well-
slammed the door and hell no, we don't need no sewer.
Well, they really didn't want to get in the sewer business.
Yeah. And they didn't want anybody.
And a lot of years ago, I kind of understand that, because sewer was expensive. It still is expensive. We just happen to have a little bit of money. And there's a lot of grant money out there.
Well, and it wasn't as big a priority then as it is now.
Well, we didn't have as many
And they didn't.
places, houses, as much industry.
Here comes Jim, there's one more, we're getting there.
Need one more and we're done.
Good morning, Jim.
Here's Wanda.
That's wonderful, good.
All right.
Wanda, we got a
We're
quorum.
good.
Good morning. Ooh, I'm in the elite. I get to sit back there.
Jim? Goodness gracious. Where's the leper? Oh, well.
Y'all please quickly choose somebody to run the meeting so we can start.
Dick or Jim? Jim's got the longest continuous service.
Jim, will you serve as chair this morning, please?
Sure.
Steve says
You have a quorum, so you can.
You have a hammer down there.
Well, it's the appointed time, so I'm gonna call the November 16th meeting of the Water and Sewage Facility Authority to order. Jeff Brandon is going to deliver an invocation.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for the many blessings that you've bestowed upon us. We thank you for this great country that we live in and the opportunity to be here today to serve our community. Lord, we ask that your hand be on each and every one of us as we meet here today to make, to handle the business of the Spalding County Water and Sewer Authority, and that you lead and guide and direct us in the decisions that are made here, that they are for the benefit of the Spalding County Water Authority and its customers, and for the Spalding County community as a whole. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Cheryl's gonna lead us in the pledge.
Yes, we'll do it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Comes Ms. Delaney. Mr. Chairman, are there any additions that we need to make to the agenda? Should I approve it as it stands?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay, then I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
A motion, can I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to adopt the agenda. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Citizen comments. Anybody?
Charlie's
Mr.
grabbing
Secretary?
the sheet, but nobody.
No, sir.
We can get out of here quick. Now, the next item 6 is consider approval of minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting. I know Charlie sent those out.
Mr. Chairman, I've read them. They appear to be in order unless somebody has a change or correction. I move that we approve as presented.
Motion need a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve our minutes of October 19th regularly scheduled meeting. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? The next item, consider acceptance of the November 9th Planning Finance Joint Committee meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, they appear also to be in order unless somebody has any corrections. I move they be approved.
Have a motion?
Accept, not approve, accept.
Accept.
I second.
Motion second, got a second. So, all in favor of accepting our minutes of the November 9th meeting, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Unanimous. All right. Mr. Johnson, financial report.
So based on the consumption build as of 10/31, we are tracking low projection, still roughly 1% to a high projection of revenues to the end of the FY23 of around 2.7%. So everything is looking good. The days held in operating reserve is still at 184. I will let you know that we submitted the memo that was requested by finance to move that payment reconciliation amount over from the operating account to the money market. That should hit next month, so that number will increase.
Chairman, I move we accept the financial report.
Got a motion to approve, have a second?
Second. Wanda raised her hand, she can do that one.
Thank you, Wanda. We got a motion and a second to approve the financial report as presented by General Member Johnson. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carries. All right, who's gonna do the Planning Finance Committee report?
Well, I'm going to kick it off and then turn over a couple things to Cheryl. For those of you who were not our Planning Finance Committee, we had some interesting discussions of the topics at hand. Number one, there was a change order in the price for decommissioning the water plant, the sewer plant, due to the water that's left in it. And we discussed that, and we have a unanimous consensus to pay the difference in the change order, and that you'll find under new business number 2. We'll get to that here very shortly. That also brought up a issue about authorization for general manager, and Cheryl will cover that in just a minute. We discussed the Flint River water line reimbursement, thanks to Joseph. We do have some right-of-way out there that we're going to get credit for, and under new business number 1, we have a vote to approve that memorandum with the GDOT that'll reimburse us for our existing line. And that also brought up an issue on our procurement policy, which Cheryl will get to in a minute. And last but not least, Joseph has negotiated an agreement with Community Service LLC, which is the sewer plant at Sun City, and they are working on a defined service area to clarify that problem we discovered. And I think between he and Brian Davison, they have an agreed to general service area, and the wording was going to be passed on to our attorney, and that'll be coming up later. So we've got a fix in the works for that issue. With that, I'll turn it over to Cheryl for.
Okay, the Finance Committee discussed, and this came from having to approve the $25,000, giving the general manager the authority to approve change orders up to $50,000 without having to come to this board for approval. And I don't see that to be approved later. Is that something we need a motion on here?
I thought it was on the agenda. Okay.
that $50,000, do we need a motion now? Because I don't see it under new business.
It's
Yeah,
not,
you-
and I
need to
think,
amend the
Joseph,
agenda.
if I remember, I was gonna run it by you for any wording needed, so I assume we'll be on the next agenda.
Is that what we want to do, is wait until the next agenda? Hopefully nothing will come up
I
between now
think,
and then?
yeah, I think that's probably the best.
Okay. And then the second thing is, consider adopting Spalding County's procurement policy. That again came from Planning and Finance, and this will be brought back to the board once Joseph reviews it. And
Yeah, so that
makes-
needs to be on the next agenda.
That'll be on
as
the next
well.
agenda as well. He'll determine whether or not we need to make any adjustments in that policy to suit our needs. So those will be two items that we will look at next time. The first one, the $50,000, will just keep us from having to bring every little item before us and having to delay progress in a project. So those are the two items that came from finance.
So that concludes our committee report.
Okay. Do we need to approve those committee reports? Okay. Thank y'all for doing that. Thank you for the work of the committees. It's now, we're down to the general manager report.
So, we've been busy trying to schedule the workshops for the sewer feasibility study. We've landed on 2 dates. And the dates are December 7th and December 15th from 8 to 5 at the 4-H auditorium. So I know those are going to be busy days, but they're going to be very productive days. Getting into the projects that we're currently doing, the demolition has been kind of halted until the change order gets done. The contractor has almost removed everything they possibly could before moving in some new equipment to take care of the solids or the sludge in the lagoon. Right now, I would like to stay optimistic and think that we could have that project wrapped up by the end of the year, but that's to be determined at this point. It just all depends on how fast we can get the solids out of the lagoon. The abandonment letter and the notice of termination of our NPDS permit is tied to the demolition of the plant, so we won't be able to submit that until the plant is completely demolished. The Dundee Phase 2 sewer project, the notice to proceed is still tentatively issued for January 1st or January 3rd. The contractor will let us know if he can move up the schedule due to materials. And the Flint River Bridge, we've been meticulously working with Paragon and GDOT, and when you approve that MOU and the memorandum of understanding, we will be able to finalize everything with GDOT to get everything scheduled for reimbursement. But Steve Manley has reached out to as many homeowners as possible that has responded back to him. There's still 2 that he hasn't spoken to. So what we're gonna do in order to get the project on the street, we're gonna show a primary route and then an alternative route. The alternative route's gonna show it in the easement, but we need to get this project out to bid, so we're not gonna be holding GDOT up when they let the project at the first of the year. So it's gonna tell us, do we need to go ahead and procure the materials now, or has lead times on PVC shortened where the contractor's not gonna run into any problems? So what we're planning on doing is the alternative. All that's gonna be is some additional pipe and maybe some clearing of easements. But is that okay with is that process okay with everybody? Have an alternative 1
How
and
much
2?
is the additional cost?
I mean, estimate is the easement itself less than probably $25,000. There may be some clearing which runs, $5,000 an acre? There may be 2 acres, so it's probably less than 50 grand total investment. But remember, what it does is it protects us from ever paying to relocate that line in the future. The City of Griffin audit of customers. The city has provided us a comprehensive list of all the customers, residential, commercial, and industrial. So we will be reviewing that list and bringing it to the planning committee next month for recommendation on how to proceed. And really what we need to do is talk through how we're gonna handle the industrial customers. And just know that there are some schools that are on the list that will be impacted. So what we've done is, the city's provided us a average bill that they could expect to see based on their historical consumption use. So there will be changes because our rates are different than the cities. So we need to be mindful of that impact as well. Any questions on anything so far? All right. The preliminary plat, nothing's really changed. The Moore Estates, I know the gentleman here out in the audience, they were particularly interested in this project. The only thing that we are waiting on is a waterline extension plan. As you remember, we talked about doing a public-private partnership where we would extend the line where it stopped at the property corner to David Elder and Bicycle, where the water line currently exists. So as soon as the developer gets their zoning hurdles overcome, we'll possibly get the water line relocate or water line extension plan presented to us. But it sounds like they have some pretty high hurdles to overcome. The construction phase, really, and we've had some commercial projects submitted, we're working through those, but nothing much has changed on that. Big Ponds is still way out in the future. They have a laundry list of items that they're gonna need to provide to us. Getting into the fire hydrant maintenance report, to date, we're averaging around 126 fire hydrants a month. You'll notice in October, the count was down. One of our technicians he went on a vacation for a week, so that's the reason. But we're still tracking, cycling through all the fire hydrants every 24 months. We will increase that or expedite that time to touch every hydrant once we can reallocate one of our staff members from the wastewater plant. Going to the meter sales sheet, as you can see, we are 99% looking at current year versus historical, so nothing out of the norm is happening so far. I'm gonna be interested to see how things progress over the next 3 to 4 months with interest rates being the way they are, but nothing to worry about at this point. And then the non-revenue water, we are tracking fiscal year to date, roughly $9,300 has been put on the ground. And remember, we're never gonna be able to get rid of all the non-revenue water because this is fire hydrant flushing, leaks, and main breaks.
That it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Can we have I guess we need a motion to accept
So moved.
his report.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Mr. Lane.
Thank you.
Second.
To accept the general manager's report, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Okay, any old business?
None.
New business. Joseph, you're back up for,
Mr. Chairman, item number 1, the approval of the GDOT memorandums, as we mentioned earlier, and our committee has a consensus 100% to approve that MOU. I therefore move that we do approve the memorandum with the GDOT.
motion need a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? I know I have a question. Were we able to, on that, I think it was page 2, the number of feet?
Yes, sir. Roughly, the entire project is 4,600 feet. So that's the total length. Our water line reimbursement is gonna be anywhere between 13 to 2,000 feet. So it's all dependent on how gracious GDOT is, because we have physically shown where our water line is off right of way, but yet we only have a document that shows 1,300 feet going east from the river towards West Ellis. So we're presenting it as all the water line that's off the right of way, they're gonna reimburse us. So we're gonna let them try to call our hand on it.
How does the alternative route affect that length?
You'll have some additional length to get off right away, but the length, I mean, you may be 50, 100 feet.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so nothing huge.
No, the only additional cost that we will have to incur is clearing the easement, and then obviously the perpetual maintenance of that easement. But it would keep us from having to spend another $1 million in 20 years when they decide to 4-lane it, and they come back south.
Okay. Any other discussion? Got a motion and a second to approve our MOU with the Flint River Bridge water main relocation. All in favor? Raise your hand. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
This-
item number 2, approval of the plant decommissioning change was, as we discussed earlier, and I move that we approve the additional $25,000 amount as presented.
Okay, motion need a second?
Second.
Second. Motion is a second to approve up to $25,000, our decommissioning change order request, so you can get them rolling.
I would like to add something. You see that there, from the original agenda item to the revised change order that you see, it's more comprehensive in the language. So the 25 grand is still consistent, so that was the original. And then you have a copy of a more extensive change order, which basically states the $25,000 based on our best guess right now of the total number, or the total volume. So what we wanted to do is tie them, they're gonna have to give us a dollar figure per hour for additional time on the machine. But what Charles and I were talking about is we're gonna monitor their progress on a daily basis. Once we hit that 40 hours, we're gonna reassess and say, can we drain the pond and smooth out the remainder of any type of solids, or what's the best course of action going forward? But the change order could exceed 25 grand, but it's capped at a dollar per hour rate. But Paragon and I will be working very closely with the contractor to ensure that if we go over that 40 hours, do we really need to, or what's the best course? So I would like you to approve the second one, where if we need to go over the amount, we can. But we will be working with them and overseeing everything.
Did you want to amend your motion?
Okay, how do you want it to read then? I'm sorry.
So just accept the revised change order with date, November 15th, 2022?
Okay, I got you. That's my motion, that my motion is now that we approve the change order request as presented, the current one.
Okay. Need a second?
Second.
Okay.
And I will say that this is the exact reason we'd like to give Joseph some leeway, because they had to stop work for this $25,000 change, even though the whole job was considerably under budget, so that an interruption by the contractor makes for difficulties. If he had some authority, we could have just rolled on while we let him handle this small change.
So we got a motion and a second to approve this change order request. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. All right, I think that concludes the new business. Our next meeting is scheduled for December the 21st here in this room, I guess at 8:30. Any comments, sir?
No, sir, no comments. Just a question for you. December 21st is very close to Christmas. Just to make sure that we have a quorum, we will be in touch with each of you to make sure you're going to be here for that week, because I know travel plans change during the holidays. So we appreciate all that you are doing and plan to do in the new year. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Joseph, anything?
I do want to provide an update. Over the last couple of months, Mr. Skinner and Ms. Fanning, Pine Tree Hill has been topic of conversation. Well, I met with Ms. Fanning in the HOA this past Sunday and provided some, I think it was a great dialogue that we had.
Excellent.
So what we were working out is they were advised of the information that we need to be able to present in our preliminary engineering report to try to get a competitive project to get approved through DCA. And at the meeting, we talked about figuring out who needs to be the point of contact. So Charlie and I met with Kelly with Department of Public Health yesterday, and what's going to be recommended by me after that meeting is we set up a meeting where Department of Public Health and myself can come out to another meeting maybe in January to work through the particulars on who needs to be the point of contact. Because my fear is if Department of Public Health is the point of contact and the violation is severe enough, we may do some harm where they're going to be put on a time limit of 30 days to fix something. So I'm trying to be sensitive to the best course of action. All we're looking to do is just show the severity of need. And I think the Department of Public Health and Kelly can help us figure out some ways that we can get that information. So I would request, Ms. Delaney, that you put us on the January meeting date and let us come speak again.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. That's it.
I know you'll be sensitive. I just don't want to open that can of worms.
Correct.
And put them in a punitive situation.
And that was that's the reason why I'm trying to, and Department of Public Health understands that as well. And Kelly specifically stated that she would not impose any punitive damages unless she was forced to, meaning if a disgruntled neighbor called and complained or forced her hand. So she's going to provide some tidbits of information, and then maybe we can sidebar afterwards to figure out a best course of action. But I think it's just, we could use this time as a educational forum where, it was a great dialogue. It was a great meeting.
Good, thank you.
Joseph, if I can add just a bit of information to that. One of the things that the county is doing in support of this effort as well is recognizing that we're still a step away from Water First. The staff met early last week and discussed the application for Plan First Community. We are working toward completing the application for Plan First due in the March-April timeframe of next year for Georgia Department of Community Affairs. One of the main reasons that we're pursuing that is so that we can make application for CDBG grants annually. And we are in a position, I believe, that we have a strong application for next year for Plan First. So that will be imperative for us to move forward in support of this effort.
Authority member comments. Ms. Wanda?
I might just ask Joseph a little bit, the document that was sent out, I guess it was yesterday, about the differing plans, the different approaches, maybe
Yes.
just a little, I didn't understand it exactly.
Okay. So in order to steer our conversations on the workshop, we were trying to have a corridor delineated in each one of the service areas. So two of the service areas are kind of we didn't provide a limited and an aggressive option. The limited and aggressive option, only, if my memory serves me correct, is for 1941 North and the Tri-County area. So the difference between the two is the limited is kind of, it's a smaller scope. The aggressive is, okay, we looked at our service area and county properties in those areas and said, okay, well, if we have one shot at doing this, let's encompass everything that we possibly can to throw in this study. I can tell you, last night I received comments from Mr. Walter Cox, which is on the zoning commission,
The planning.
the planning commission. And he wanted to reiterate to use the corridors delineated in the plan and the comp plan. And I guess I'm gonna get with Kelly Littlefield and make sure that I get all their documents if they delineated any specific properties. But he understood if we wanted to go a little bit wider than the corridors that were, I guess, talked about or referenced in the plan, he was like, that's fine, but he doesn't want to blow up the entire comp plan or zoning ordinances. So we're gonna start keeping a list of all the comments received, and we'll make sure that we address the corridors in the workshop meetings. Does that answer your question? So remember, the corridors, really no engineering principles have been applied up to this point. We really can't do any flow projections or look at best practices until a corridor is identified. Now we can use topography, we can use land use, we can use all the tools that we have available to have a sustainable and feasible plan presented.
Thank you. Mr. Lane?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Skinner. I want to say thank you again to Joseph for coming out to our HOA meeting on Sunday. It was most enlightening. People who were there, as he said, were he presented things to us that were in layman's terms that everybody could understand. And we do understand that we appreciate the efforts that he is making to help us. And thank you too, Jim, for keeping us in the forefront. And we just have confidence that the best outcome is gonna come after 30 plus years. We're finally seeing some light at the end of the tunnel that's not the freight train. So thank you so much, Joseph, for coming.
Absolutely.
And my apologies to the authority this morning. I didn't know that I was supposed to be presiding because I thought it was gonna be Gwen, so I'm sorry for not appearing at the proper time.
Pay the $100, we won't forget it.
Okay, I'll take it out of the compensation that I'm getting every month.
That compensation we're all getting, that's right.
Dick? Just for the record, when Dr. Keller passed, that was Griffin's representative at the Upper Flint Water Authority. And so the city got involved in that, haven't been a long-term member there. And Brandon has been designated as the city's replacement for Dr. Keller on the Upper Flint Water Council, which is important because stuff comes up at the Upper Flint that can seriously affect Griffin and Spalding County. And so, assuming the governor approves Brandon as the replacement, we'll have somebody there keeping an eye on things. And I also say that at our next meeting, December, the Upper Flint meeting, not ours, I resigned from that. But anyway, Joseph and I will be down there. He's going to present our sewer feasibility overview to that council because they're interested in those sorts of things. So he'll update them on our sewer feasibility study. And that very well might help financially for some grant money for some of our sewer problems. So it's good to keep in touch with that group because they are a state council and do have power and money above and beyond us. So we're gonna go down and play nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandon, for representing us. I know that's, folks south of us try to tell us what to do up north here, and it
Yeah,
can
well,
get rather contentious.
Dick was instrumental in, as soon as he caught wind of something, he brought it to us and made sure
I have one other quick, I don't know if these gentlemen out here, if this has brought up any questions or not, but this is your first water authority meeting, I guess, gentlemen. This has been a short one, so you've been lucky.
Y'all picked the right one.
Jim?
No comments today.
Ms.
Yes,
Cheryl?
please. The Finance Committee was tasked with the job of trying to come up with a document that would make us a little bit more independently dependent upon the county. And I'm wondering if that maybe shouldn't be tasked to the Bylaws Committee and maybe change the bylaws to the Bylaws and Regulations Committee, because it's not really a finance task. So anyway, it's a task that has to be done, and we can talk about where it should really be designated.
I'm
But-
sorry, I can't see you. What?
But, that can be determined, but be thinking about that, because that's something that we're gonna try to do, is, like I said, be a little bit more independently dependent.
Well, you chair both committees, right?
Well, I know that, but the same
So
people
just-
aren't on both of
You
them.
can pass it to whichever hand you want, right?
Well, like I said, maybe the Bylaws Committee needs to have a little bit more open name to maybe Bylaws and Regulations or something. But I really don't think it's a finance task.
I agree, actually.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie?
No, sir.
Charlie?
No, thank you.
Okay. I don't have anything.
I move we adjourn.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn? We're adjourned. Thank y'all very much.